AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé. So, this is going to be a bit of a long story, but I really need an outside perspective because I feel like I might be overreacting, but at the same time, I don't think I am. I, 27F, have a younger sister, Emma, 24F, who I have always been super close with, but our relationship has gotten strained over the past year. She recently got engaged to a guy named Jason, 26M, and honestly, I don't know how to explain him without sounding dramatic, but I think he's a terrible influence on her. I met Jason a few times before they got engaged, and my first impression was okay. He seemed polite enough if a bit awkward. But over time, I started noticing patterns in his behavior that really bother me. He's incredibly controlling, often belittles Emma, and tries to manipulate situations to always make himself look like the victim. He constantly puts her down in subtle ways, like, "Oh, you're probably too stressed to handle that, so I'll do it," or making offhand comments about her job, her friends, or even the way she dresses. At first, I thought maybe I was being too sensitive, but the more I witnessed, the more I realized that he consistently tries to undermine her confidence. About 6 months ago, things got worse. Emma and Jason had a big fight in front of our parents over something minor. He accused her of hiding things from him, which was entirely untrue, and then stormed out. After that, she started texting me almost every day asking for advice and venting about him. I've tried to be supportive, but it's been exhausting because she doesn't always take my advice and just seems to be stuck in a cycle of frustration with him. Fast forward to last month. Emma called me crying because Jason had apparently blown up at her over a guest list issue for the wedding. He was demanding that she uninvite certain friends who he didn't like, including some of our mutual friends, and even went as far as threatening to not marry her if she didn't comply. I told her that this was abusive and that she deserved to stand her ground, but she seemed terrified of losing him. She also mentioned that he had been subtly trying to control everything about the wedding, from the color scheme to the catering, even the music playlist. Here's where I might be the asshole. I decided I couldn't, in good conscience, attend the wedding. I felt like showing up and pretending everything was fine would be implicitly condoning Jason's behavior, and I honestly don't want to be in the same room as someone who treats my sister that way. I told Emma that I love her and I want her to be happy, but I cannot support this relationship. I tried to explain my reasons calmly, citing specific examples, but she immediately became defensive. She said that I was overreacting, that Jason is a good guy who just has a temper sometimes, and that I was being dramatic and judgmental. My parents are completely on Emma's side. They think I am being unreasonable and said that weddings are about family and supporting each other, not passing judgment. They accused me of ruining the family dynamic and said I'm being selfish by refusing to attend. My friends are split. Some say I'm standing up for my sister and doing the right thing, while others say I'm overstepping and I need to let her make her own choices, even if I disagree. I try to compromise by offering to attend only the ceremony or just the reception, but Emma said it would be awkward and that my presence would create tension, which honestly, it probably would. I feel terrible because I love my sister and I don't want to hurt her, but I also feel like standing up for her and my own principles is more important. I've offered to help her in other ways, like with planning or listening to her vent, but she seems to think that my refusal is a personal attack on her and her happiness. I haven't told anyone outside the immediate family yet because I don't want this to become some big drama, but my anxiety is through the roof. I keep second-guessing myself, wondering if I'm being controlling or judgmental by refusing to attend. I want to support Emma, but I also don't want to pretend that I am okay with Jason's behavior. So, Reddit, AITA here. Am I being an overprotective, judgmental sister who is ruining what should be a happy occasion? Or am I justified in my decision not to attend a wedding that, as far as I can see, is built on control and manipulation? I really need honest opinions because I feel like everyone in my life is telling me that I'm wrong, but my gut tells me otherwise. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move in with us, even though he's family now. I, 28F, live in a two-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city. I've lived here for about 4 years, and it's the first place I could really afford on my own. My younger sister, Emily, 25F, has been dating her fiancé, Matt, 27M, for 3 years. I like Matt well enough, but we've never been super close. Emily and I have always been close, but our relationship has gotten a little strained since she started planning her wedding. She's always been a bit impulsive, and lately, she's been making a lot of big life decisions without talking to anyone, which I've been trying to be patient about. About a month ago, Emily called me crying. She said Matt, and she had a huge fight, and Matt had nowhere to go for a few days because his apartment lease ended and his roommates were kicking him out for a minor argument. Emily told me she had told Matt he could crash at my place temporarily because he's family now, and she was begging me to let him stay for a few nights. I was taken aback because this wasn't a small favor. Our apartment isn't big, and I was in the middle of a busy work schedule. I told her I couldn't have him stay at my place because I really value my space, especially since I've been working from home. Emily was furious. She said I was being unreasonable, that family helps each other, and that I was prioritizing my comfort over her fiancé's emergency. I tried to reason with her, explaining that a temporary stay isn't small in a two-bedroom apartment, especially with me working from home and needing a stable routine. She said, "It's just a few nights. You're overreacting." I ended the call frustrated, but thinking I'd handled it politely. The next week, Emily kept texting me about the situation, and finally, she said, "If you really loved me, you'd let Matt stay. I can't believe you're choosing your apartment over your own family." I didn't respond at first, but then she said she would ask Matt to move in permanently after the wedding, since he needs to be part of the family. That crossed a line for me. I texted back firmly that my apartment was my personal space, and I had no intention of letting anyone move in permanently unless I agreed. Emily exploded. She said I was selfish, that I was trying to control her life, and that I was sabotaging her relationship. She blocked me on social media, and our mom called me crying, saying I was tearing the family apart. My mom was very persuasive, saying that a couple should support each other and that I needed to compromise because Matt is part of the family now. I explained to her that I wasn't refusing to support Emily. I was refusing to allow someone I barely know to move in permanently without my consent. She didn't seem to understand and kept repeating that I needed to think bigger than myself. To make things worse, a mutual friend of ours posted on social media that I had refused to let Matt stay with me, and people were calling me selfish. I tried to explain my side, but it felt like everyone was against me. I felt frustrated and hurt because I've always gone out of my way to help my friends and family, but this felt different. I felt like my boundaries were being dismissed entirely. After a few days, I decided to reach out to Emily one last time to explain my position calmly. I wrote a long message explaining that I care about her and support her relationship, but that I have every right to maintain my personal space. I also mentioned that if she needed help, I was happy to help her find temporary housing or help Matt with moving costs, but I could not let him live with me. Emily didn't respond. A week later, Matt showed up at my apartment unannounced. I was shocked. I told him he couldn't stay and that he needed to leave immediately. He tried to argue that Emily had told him it was okay and that I was being unreasonable. I stayed firm, and eventually he left, but the encounter left me shaken. I felt like my boundaries were violated in a way that I didn't know how to process. Now, my sister hasn't spoken to me in 3 weeks. My mom is upset with me, and a few friends are suggesting that I should just let him stay to keep the peace. I feel conflicted because part of me wants to smooth things over, but another part of me is proud that I stood my ground. I'm also worried that if I back down now, it will set a precedent that I have no say over my own living space. I'm beginning to wonder if I'm being too rigid. Am I really the asshole for refusing to let my sister's fiancé live with me, even temporarily, when she sees him as family? Or am I justified in setting boundaries in my own home? AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my house after she lied about her situation? So background first. I, 27F, have been living in my own apartment for about 3 years now. It's not huge, but it's cozy and I love it. I work full-time as a graphic designer, and I try to keep my space neat because, honestly, it's my sanctuary. My younger sister, Emily, 24F, has had a rough time recently. She moved to our city a year ago after breaking up with her boyfriend and losing her job in her hometown. She's currently working a few part-time gigs here and there, trying to get back on her feet, which I completely understand. I've been supportive in the past, offering advice, occasionally helping her with meals, or giving her small loans when she really needed them. A few weeks ago, Emily called me, sounding desperate. She told me that she had been evicted from her apartment because her landlord sold the building and she had nowhere to go. She explained that she tried staying with friends, but they were all full and she had nowhere else to turn. She asked if she could stay with me for a week or so until she could figure something out. At first, I was hesitant because, as I said, my apartment isn't huge, but I didn't want to turn her away. Family is family, and I remembered how rough it was when I was younger and struggling. However, I told her that she could stay for a maximum of 3 nights strictly because I had work and I also needed my space to not go completely insane. She seemed relieved and promised me that she would make it work. The first night was fine. She brought some of her belongings and didn't complain. We watched a movie and chatted a bit. Everything seemed normal. The next morning, I went to work, and when I came back in the evening, I found her apartment-style suitcase fully unpacked, and she had rearranged some of my furniture to make room for her things. I was a bit annoyed, but I decided to let it slide, thinking maybe she needed to make herself comfortable. Over the next day, things escalated. She left her dirty dishes all over my kitchen, borrowed my clothes without asking, and even used my expensive face mask that I specifically keep for myself. I politely asked her not to do that, and reminded her that she had agreed to stay for only 3 nights. She brushed it off, saying she needed to settle in, and that she wasn't comfortable just living out a suitcase. I started noticing inconsistencies in her story too. For example, she told me she had no friends to stay with, but she kept mentioning meeting people for coffee or going over to someone's place for a few hours. I didn't think much of it at first, but it raised a red flag. On the 3rd night, I overheard her on the phone with someone from her hometown, laughing and talking about how she was crashing in my apartment for now, but it's great because I have space to shop and relax. That really annoyed me because it made me feel like she had exaggerated her situation to guilt me into letting her stay indefinitely. The next morning, I confronted her. I told her that I felt uncomfortable with how she had been treating my space and that I expected her to leave as we had agreed. She got defensive, saying I was being unreasonable and unsympathetic. She claimed she really had nowhere else to go and that I was betraying her by asking her to leave. I tried explaining that I could help her find temporary housing or resources, but my apartment wasn't a hotel and she had overstayed the agreed-upon time. She ended up yelling and saying that I was selfish and had no idea what it's like to struggle. Things got even messy when she called our parents and told them that I had kicked her out without reason. They were upset, but when I explained my side, they were more understanding, though they suggested I could have been more flexible. I still feel that I was reasonable. I offered her 3 nights, didn't charge her, and even tried helping her figure out alternatives. After she left, I found out that she had been applying to short-term rentals in my city for weeks before showing up at my place. She lied about being evicted and about having nowhere to go. Part of me feels hurt and betrayed because I genuinely tried to help her. I feel like she manipulated me to get free housing while she took advantage of my generosity. Now, some friends are saying I overreacted by confronting her and asking her to leave, but I honestly feel like I set reasonable boundaries and that she intentionally crossed them. I don't want to ruin my relationship with her, but I also don't want to allow her to manipulate me in the future. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister stay at my house after she lied about her situation. AITA for refusing to let my brother and his family move in after he claimed I should put family first. I, 35F, have a younger brother, Jake, 30M, and I've always considered myself the responsible one in the family. I have a stable job, a mortgage, and a quiet life, while Jake tends to be impulsive, disorganized, and often expects others to handle situations he could solve himself. Despite this, I care about him and his family. A few months ago, Jake called me in a panic. Their apartment had suffered severe water damage due to a burst pipe, and he and his wife, Tara, 29F, had nowhere to stay. Almost immediately, he said that he and Tara would need to move into my apartment temporarily until their place was repaired. I live alone in a 3-bedroom apartment, work full-time, and have a strict routine. While I technically had the space, I wasn't comfortable letting them live with me for an indefinite period. I explained my position and offered alternatives, helping them find a short-term rental, assisting with moving, and even helping cover some of the costs if necessary. Jake reacted angrily. He said it was ridiculous that I wouldn't let family stay with me during a crisis and accused me of being selfish and uncaring. He said that families should put each other first, implying that I had a moral obligation to let them stay. I stayed calm and explained that I wanted to help, but my apartment is my sanctuary, and having 2 adults and a young child live there indefinitely would be extremely disruptive. A day later, Tara called me. She said I was being cold and unsupportive, and that their situation was dire. She told me that other relatives had offered temporary solutions, subtly suggesting that I was the only one standing in the way. I explained again that I could contribute in other ways, help with logistics, coordinate storage for their belongings, and even help pay for a short-term rental. But she refused to consider alternatives. Over the next week, both of them bombarded me with messages. Jake sent long texts about how difficult their situation was, and Tara emphasized how stressful it was for their young child. Both framed my refusal as me prioritizing my comfort over family obligations. Friends and relatives began reaching out, asking if I was being unreasonable, with some suggesting I should just let them stay to avoid tension. I felt increasingly pressured and guilty, but I still couldn't compromise my boundaries. A few days later, Jake and Tara showed up unannounced at my apartment. They expected me to change my mind. I told them firmly that the answer was no and that arriving uninvited was not acceptable. Tara started crying and yelling, saying I was ruining their lives, while Jake accused me of being selfish and heartless. I stayed calm and offered my final compromise. I would help them pack, transport their things, and contribute a reasonable amount toward short-term rental. I made it clear that I would not let them move in. They refused. Jake said that my compromise was not enough and accused me of choosing convenience over family. Tara added that my refusal showed I didn't care about their struggles or their child. I reiterated my limits, emphasizing that helping them logistically and financially in reasonable ways was still meaningful support. Since then, our relationship has been strained. Jake barely speaks to me. Tara continues posting vague messages on social media about family who won't help when it matters, and my other relatives have divided opinions. Some say I was justified in setting boundaries, while others think I should have just let them stay to avoid drama. I feel frustrated and guilty. I genuinely want to help them, but I also can't compromise my home, my routines, and my mental health. I've offered multiple ways to help that don't involve them moving in, but they refuse anything that isn't exactly what they want. I also worry that giving in would set a precedent where they could make unreasonable demands whenever convenient. It's left me questioning how much responsibility I have to family versus protecting my own boundaries. Reddit. AITA for refusing to let my brother and his family move in after he claimed I should put family first. I want to support them and help during this crisis, but I also need to protect my home, my mental health, and my personal space. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of a family feud that nobody wants to acknowledge. I, 27F, have always been the peacemaker in my family, which in hindsight might have been a mistake. My cousin, let's call her Rachel, 30F, has been planning her wedding for over a year, and invitations went out about 6 months ago. The issue is that her wedding falls on the same weekend as the annual family reunion, which is something my immediate family has been doing every year for the past 20 years. This year's reunion is particularly special because it's our 20th anniversary of doing it every summer, and my parents have been talking about it nonstop. They expect me, my siblings, and my cousins to attend, including Rachel, because it's tradition. The problem is there's a long-standing feud between Rachel and my older brother, James, 32M. It started in college over something trivial, some argument about a shared group project. But over the years, it snowballed into what my parents refer to as a permanent Cold War. The funny thing is, everyone acts like it doesn't exist, but it's painfully obvious at family gatherings. James refuses to be in the same room as Rachel if he can avoid it, and Rachel has made it clear she won't let him attend any event she's hosting. When the wedding invite arrived, I initially thought I could handle attending both events, just a few hours at the wedding, then leaving to join my family reunion. But when I told my parents my plan, they freaked out. They said it would be extremely disrespectful to my cousin to show up just for a short time and then leave. They also said attending the wedding would force a confrontation between James and Rachel, which I found ridiculous because, in my mind, I'm not responsible for managing adult conflicts. I tried explaining this to my parents and to Rachel when I texted her thanking her for the invite. I said I was committed to attending the family reunion and that I was worried about the tension between her and James. I offered to meet her for lunch or coffee another day to celebrate, but she replied curtly, saying, "That's not the same as being there on my big day. I guess you're choosing him over me." I was taken aback. I honestly didn't think this would turn into a "you're choosing sides" situation. I've always tried to stay neutral, and I genuinely care about both of them. My parents started pressuring me more, saying that if I don't attend the wedding, it's a huge betrayal to the family and shameful behavior. They've hinted that they might not even allow James to attend the reunion if I'm not at the wedding, which feels manipulative to me. I try to compromise again. I asked Rachel if it would be okay for me to attend the wedding after the reunion, or maybe just attend the ceremony and skip the reception. She was adamant that weddings aren't a drive-by thing, and said I was making excuses. I felt like no matter what I said, it wouldn't be enough. In the end, I told Rachel I wouldn't be attending her wedding because I had made plans with my family months ago, and I wanted to honor them. I offered to celebrate with her separately, and even suggested helping with wedding planning in some small way if she wanted. She responded with a long message about how hurtful and selfish I was, and that she couldn't believe I'd let James' feelings dictate my actions. After that, my parents cornered me at dinner and said I had broken the family code and that I was choosing chaos over love. My siblings are split. James thinks I did the right thing, while my younger sister thinks I should have sucked it up for Rachel. Extended family members have started taking sides on social media, and honestly, it's exhausting. I feel like I'm being punished for trying to be fair and neutral. I don't want to get into the middle of their feud, and I don't want to ruin the family reunion, which is literally one weekend every year. I also feel like Rachel is being unreasonable because she's framing my decision as picking James when I really just want to attend a family event I've always gone to. Since then, I've received texts from other family members calling me a traitor, heartless, and dramatic. Some distant cousins are even saying they won't speak to me if I don't attend the wedding. At this point, I'm seriously questioning if I made the wrong choice because the entire extended family is basically shunning me over one weekend. So, Reddit, AITA for choosing to attend the family reunion over my cousin's wedding, even though there's an ongoing feud between her and my brother. I'm genuinely torn because I want to maintain relationships with both sides, but it seems like no matter what I do, someone will be upset. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé plan our family reunion without my input. So, this is going to be a long one, and honestly, I still don't even know if I'm overreacting or not. I'll try to lay it out as clearly as possible. I, 27F, come from a moderately large family. We have a tradition where every summer, we gather for a family reunion at my parents' place. My parents are in their late 50s, and they've hosted this event for as long as I can remember. Usually, the kids help with small tasks, but my mom usually coordinates everything. That was the case up until last year when my sister, Claire, 30F, started dating someone new. Let's call him Tom, 32M. Claire and Tom have been together for just over a year, and honestly, Tom has been a bit of a whirlwind. He's charming, confident, and honestly, I get along with him in small doses, but he has this tendency to take charge of situations that aren't really his to manage. So, last year my mom was planning the reunion, but Claire mentioned that Tom had some ideas to make it more exciting, and my mom, wanting to be polite, let him suggest some things. This included a DJ, a rented bouncy castle for the kids, and even a custom cocktail bar for the adults. My mom didn't really want all of that, but she didn't know how to tell him no without seeming rude. The reunion ended up being chaotic. The kids loved the bouncy castle, the adults loved the cocktails, but it felt more like a corporate event than a family gathering. Everyone was politely smiling, but I could see my parents stressed out from trying to manage things Tom had insisted on. When I tried to mention that maybe we should scale it back next year, Claire got defensive, saying that Tom was only trying to help and that he had good ideas. My parents quietly agreed with me, but they didn't want to make a scene, so it was left at that. Fast forward to this year. My parents explicitly said they wanted a smaller, more low-key reunion, just the usual food, games, and hanging out. I volunteered to help coordinate this year, since I've always loved planning family events and know how to manage everyone without losing my mind. I told Claire that she could help with small things like organizing games or decorations, but the main planning would be mine and my mom's. 2 weeks ago, Claire told me she wanted Tom to take charge of the reunion this year because he had so many amazing ideas. I said no. I told her that the reunion was not a wedding or a corporate party, and that last year had already proven that when Tom takes over, it becomes chaotic. She argued, saying that I was being controlling and that she wanted Tom to contribute. I tried to explain that contributing is one thing, but leading the event is another. She then said that if I didn't let him plan it, she wouldn't help at all. I felt cornered but stuck to my decision. I told her I didn't want her to participate if it meant she would allow Tom to override everything we had planned. That's when things escalated. She started sending passive-aggressive texts about how family should support each other's partners and that I was being petty and selfish. Our parents are now caught in the middle. My mom supports me privately, but doesn't want to upset Claire or Tom. My dad tried to mediate, suggesting that maybe we compromise, but honestly, I don't think it's about compromise. Tom doesn't want to compromise. He wants to take over. Last night, things got worse. Claire showed up at my apartment unannounced with Tom and started pitching his vision for the reunion while I was trying to cook dinner. He had charts, lists, and even a sample playlist of family-friendly but trendy songs. I lost it. I asked them to leave, saying this wasn't the place or time, and that if they couldn't respect our family's wishes, they weren't welcome to plan anything. Claire got upset and called me mean, and Tom rolled his eyes. They left, but my parents called afterward, saying they were worried I had burned bridges with my sister. I feel like I'm standing my ground because the reunion has always been about the family, not about impressing outsiders or following trends. I want it to be relaxed and meaningful, not some elaborate party that my parents can't even enjoy. But Claire keeps texting me, saying I'm ruining her relationship with the family and that I need to let Tom be part of things. Honestly, I'm exhausted and feel guilty for creating tension, but I also feel like giving in would just repeat last year's disaster. I don't want to have to micromanage the reunion again while pretending everything is fine. I also feel like Claire and Tom are being unreasonable by trying to hijack something that isn't theirs to control. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé plan our family reunion. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's elaborate wedding after she accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. I, 34F, have a sister, Rachel, 31F, and while we were close growing up, our relationship has always been complicated. Rachel is very dramatic and tends to expect people to bend to her will, especially when it comes to finances and events. I've always been more reserved, careful with money, and organized, but I do try to support my family when I can. A few months ago, Rachel got engaged. She immediately began planning a lavish wedding, venue, designer dress, elaborate catering, decorations, and a full open bar. The total cost she was aiming for was over $30,000. She then casually asked if I could contribute financially, suggesting that family members were expected to help fund the wedding. I was shocked. While I have a decent income, I also have significant financial responsibilities, including student loans, mortgage, and monthly expenses. I told her that I couldn't give a large sum of money, but was happy to help in other ways, helping with planning, DIY decorations, seating arrangements, coordinating vendors, and even contributing a smaller, reasonable amount towards specific expenses. Rachel's reaction was immediate and intense. She accused me of being selfish, cold, and not a real sister. She claimed that if I truly cared about her happiness, I would want her to have the wedding she dreamed of, regardless of the cost. I tried to explain that support can take many forms and that helping with planning, logistics, and decorations was also meaningful. She refused to listen. Over the next few weeks, Rachel began pressuring me constantly. She would send long messages detailing every expensive part of the wedding and emphasizing that family support was crucial. She framed my refusal as a personal failing, saying that I was choosing money over family and that my actions would cause her stress. She also posted vague social media updates about weddings and family who don't step up, clearly hinting at me. Mutual friends and relatives began weighing in. Some told me I should contribute financially to avoid family drama, while others supported my decision, acknowledging that $1,000 plus is a significant amount and no one is obligated to cover someone else's lavish celebration. The more I tried to offer practical help and alternative ways to support, the more Rachel dismissed them as not enough or insincere. A month before the wedding, Rachel organized a bridal planning meeting with family and friends. She openly stated that I had refused to contribute financially, implying that I was not supportive. I felt humiliated. I tried to redirect the conversation toward planning and offered to manage certain tasks like coordinating decorations and seating charts, but she refused anything that didn't involve a large monetary contribution. I offered a final compromise. I could contribute a modest sum that would not jeopardize my financial stability, manage logistics, and help with DIY projects. Rachel rejected this, calling it pathetic and saying that I clearly didn't care about her happiness or the wedding. She accused me of prioritizing my comfort over family obligations. Since then, our relationship has been strained. Rachel rarely speaks to me except to complain about wedding-related stress. Some relatives have sided with her, saying I should have just given the money to avoid conflict, while others say I was right to set boundaries. I feel frustrated, guilty, and stressed. I genuinely want to support my sister and celebrate her big day, but I cannot compromise my financial security or let myself be guilted into giving beyond my means. I also worry that giving in would set a precedent for future events, where Rachel might assume I will always cover large expenses for her or anyone else in the family. I feel like I'm being punished for having reasonable boundaries, yet I also don't want to damage my relationship with her permanently. Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's lavish wedding after she accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. I want to celebrate her and contribute in meaningful ways, but I also need to respect my own financial limits and boundaries. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house, even though he needs a place to crash. So, this all started a few weeks ago. I, 28F, have a sister, Emily, 26F, and we've always been close. We live in different cities, but visit each other regularly. I recently bought my first house, which I absolutely love, and I've been slowly making it feel like my own space. I enjoy hosting small gatherings and having friends over occasionally, but I also value my privacy. My sister knows this, and she's always respected it. Until now. Emily has been dating her fiancé, Jake, 27M, for about 2 years. I met him a few times, and while I wouldn't say we're close, I generally get along with him. Emily got engaged last year, and things have been relatively smooth until recently. About a month ago, Emily called me in a panic. She said that Jake's apartment lease fell through unexpectedly and that he had nowhere to stay until he finds a new place. She asked if he could stay at my house for a couple of weeks while he sorts things out. I was taken aback because my house is small and I work from home, so having another person living with me for an indefinite period sounded stressful. I told Emily that I wasn't comfortable with that. She tried to convince me by saying it would only be for a little while, and that Jake really had no other options. I explained that I couldn't just let someone live in my house without proper arrangements. I suggested a few alternatives. She could help him find a short-term rental, a friend might have a spare room, or he could stay in a motel temporarily. Emily got frustrated and said I was being unreasonable and unsisterly. A few days later, she tried a different approach. She said that Jake could help with chores and pay for groceries, implying it would be a mutually beneficial arrangement. I still refused, saying that living with me is not a favor I can give under these circumstances. I offered to help him look for a place, and even offered to give him a small loan for a deposit if needed, but I made it clear that staying at my house was off the table. Things got tense after that. Emily called me crying one evening, saying that Jake was really upset and that I was being cold and selfish. I tried to reason with her, explaining that I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, but that I also have boundaries and need to protect my space. I reminded her that I've hosted her in the past and never expected anything in return, but that doesn't mean I can accommodate an adult male for weeks without warning. A week later, Emily sent me a text asking if Jake could at least stay for one night because he didn't have anywhere else to go that evening. I still said no. She then threatened that if I didn't let him stay, she might reconsider inviting me to the wedding or even cut back on family time. That really upset me because I've always tried to maintain a good relationship with both Emily and Jake. I felt like she was using emotional manipulation to guilt me into letting someone stay in my home. I decided to talk to my parents about it. They agreed that I wasn't obligated to house Jake, but they were worried about family tensions. They suggested maybe hosting him for a meal or offering temporary assistance in another way. I took that advice to heart. I ended up inviting Jake over for dinner one evening so we could talk things out, but I made it clear he could not stay overnight. During dinner, Jake was polite, but I could sense some resentment. Emily's frustration continued. She called me again a few days later and accused me of choosing my comfort over family. I tried to calmly explain that it's not about comfort. It's about boundaries and mutual respect. I reminded her that I've always supported her in difficult situations, including helping her move, offering advice, and even lending money when she needed it. I said that this request was different because it involved a long-term, indefinite intrusion into my personal space. The tension between us has now reached a point where family gatherings feel awkward. Emily has made several comments in front of relatives about how unsupportive I am, and Jake has started ignoring me during visits. My parents have tried to mediate, suggesting compromises like Jake staying at a nearby Airbnb for a few nights or them offering him temporary lodging, but Emily seems unwilling to accept any solution that doesn't involve him staying at my house. I feel stuck. On one hand, I care about my sister and want to help her and her fiancé, but on the other hand, I feel strongly that my boundaries should be respected. I'm not trying to be malicious or mean, but I also don't want to compromise my comfort and privacy for someone who is essentially a temporary stranger in my home. I've started questioning if I'm the jerk here because of how much stress this situation has caused between me and Emily. My friends say I'm justified in saying no, but I can't shake the guilt of possibly hurting my sister's feelings. I even offered alternative ways to help Jake, but she refuses to consider them. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house, even though he's in a tough spot. I feel like I'm being responsible about boundaries, but Emily and Jake see me as cold and unsupportive. The family dynamic has gotten so tense that I'm worried it might affect the wedding and our relationship long term. I want to be a good sister, but I also feel like it's unreasonable for them to expect me to house someone indefinitely when I have no prior agreement or space for it. I'm trying to balance being supportive with protecting my own home and mental health, but the more I stick to my decision, the more Emily frames me as selfish. I don't want to escalate the conflict, but I also don't want to compromise my boundaries for guilt. Where do I stand? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded my fiancé from the guest list. So, this is going to be a long one, and I really need an unbiased perspective because my family is divided, and I honestly don't know if I'm overreacting. I, 26F, have been with my fiancé, Matt, 28M, for almost 4 years. We live together, we've been saving for a house, and our relationship is very stable. My younger sister, Emily, 23F, has been dating her fiancé, Jake, 25M, for about 2 years. My family and I are very close, and we've always supported each other in major life events. So I was really excited when Emily got engaged last year. A few months ago, Emily sent out a group message to close family members about her wedding plans. She mentioned the date, venue, and that invitations will be sent out in the following month. At first, everything seemed normal. A week later, the physical invitations arrived, and that's when things got weird. My invitation had only my name on it. Matt was not included. I was shocked and immediately called her. I asked her if this was a mistake, and she told me it wasn't. Her reasoning was that she wanted a small wedding and that her vision didn't include plus ones for family members. I tried to explain that Matt isn't just a plus one. He's my fiancé, and we live together, but she said it didn't matter. She insisted that her wedding was her day, and she didn't want to complicate things. I was hurt, but I didn't want to start a fight over the phone, so I brought it up in person when I visited my parents. My parents were sympathetic and said they understood why I'd be upset, but they also tried to play peacemaker. They suggested I just attend alone for family reasons. I left feeling frustrated but undecided. Over the next few weeks, I tried talking to Emily again, but she kept dodging the conversation or deflecting it. At one point, she said, "It's not like I'm disowning Matt. It's just that I don't want extra people." I honestly couldn't comprehend that logic. She invited cousins and friends of friends, but not my fiancé of 4 years. A week ago, she sent a follow-up message about RSVPs. I finally decided I needed to make my stance clear. I wrote back that I couldn't attend if Matt wasn't welcome because he is my partner in life, not an optional guest. Emily responded angrily, saying I was being dramatic, selfish, and disrespectful of her wedding plans. She accused me of trying to control her day and said that if I wanted to bring Matt, I was welcome to have my own wedding someday instead. This escalated quickly. My parents tried mediating, but Emily refused to compromise. She said it's her wedding, she can invite whomever she wants, and that I was being unreasonable for asking Matt to be included. My parents are now caught in the middle. My mom feels torn, and my dad told me he thinks both sides are stubborn. Matt is incredibly upset. He feels hurt and excluded, and honestly, so do I. I want to support my sister and be there for her, but I also feel like being asked to attend without my fiancé is not just hurtful, it feels disrespectful to our relationship. I even asked if I could attend for just the ceremony or reception without Matt, but Emily said no. Here's where I think things get more complicated. Emily has said in past conversations that she doesn't like Matt very much. She claims it's just personality clashes and harmless preferences, but she has made snide remarks about him to family before. I think this plays a huge role in why she's excluding him, but she won't admit it. My friends and extended family are divided. Some say I'm being dramatic and that it's just one day, and I should compromise for family unity. Others agree with me that excluding my fiancé is completely inappropriate and I shouldn't go to a wedding where my partner isn't welcome. Matt is leaning toward never attending any family weddings if he's excluded, and honestly, I feel the same. I've been agonizing over this for weeks. I tried writing Emily a heartfelt letter explaining my perspective and how important it is for me to have my life partner by my side at a major family event, but she hasn't responded. Meanwhile, the wedding is a month away and the tension in the family is rising. Some relatives have started taking sides, and my parents are frustrated because they feel like I'm making this bigger than it is, but they also don't want me to feel disrespected. I feel trapped between supporting my sister and staying true to my relationship. I don't want to cause a huge family drama, but I also don't want to compromise my boundaries or make my fiancé feel unwelcome in my family. I know weddings are stressful and everyone has their vision, but it seems wrong to completely exclude a person who is a significant part of your sibling's life. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she is excluding my fiancé? Or am I being unreasonable? And should I just suck it up and go alone? AITA for telling my sister she can't force her new husband into living in my childhood home. I, 27F, have a bit of a unique family situation, and it's been causing some tension lately. My parents passed away a few years ago, leaving behind our family home, which is a large 2-story house in the suburbs. I was incredibly close to my parents, and the house holds a lot of sentimental value to me. After their death, my sister Emily, 25F, and I inherited the house equally, though I made it clear from the start that I wanted to live there. I've been living there since then, maintaining the property, paying the bills, and generally keeping the home as it was when our parents were alive. Emily, on the other hand, has always been more independent. She lives in the city for work and travels a lot. When she got engaged last year to her now husband, Daniel, 28M, she told me she wanted to move back into the house temporarily until they could find a place closer to her job. I said I wasn't comfortable with that, as I consider the house my home and it holds a lot of emotional weight for me. I suggested she stay in her apartment or look for a rental nearby. Emily got upset, but didn't push it at the time. Fast forward a few months, and Emily and Daniel are married. During the wedding celebrations, Daniel mentioned casually that they were thinking of moving into our childhood home permanently, or at least long-term. I was floored. I reminded him that Emily and I are co-owners, but I live there full-time and maintain the house. He said he felt that it was fair since Emily owns half too, and that living there would be convenient for their jobs and family plans. I told him outright that this wasn't just about ownership, it's my home. I explained that I didn't want them moving in permanently and that I had no plans to leave. This sparked a huge argument at the family dinner later that week. Emily got defensive, saying I was being unreasonable and selfish for not letting them move in. She accused me of hogging the house and not being willing to compromise. Daniel chimed in, saying that they had the right to live there as co-owners and that I was being controlling. I tried to reason with them, offering a compromise where they could stay for a short visit or maybe rent a part of the house temporarily. But Emily and Daniel said that wasn't acceptable because they wanted stability. I also suggested they consider renting a nearby house for a year while we figured out a long-term plan, but Emily refused. The conversation ended with Emily storming out, saying I was ruining our relationship over a house. Since then, the tension has escalated. Emily has been making passive-aggressive comments whenever we talk, asking if I'll ever consider what it's like to be fair. Daniel has been sending me texts insisting that I share the space and even suggesting I move out temporarily while they settle in. I refused and said that I am not going anywhere. I feel like this is my home and I should not be forced to give it up just because they want it. Some friends have told me I'm being unfair, saying that as co-owners, Emily has just as much right to the house as I do. They argue that I should compromise for the sake of family harmony. Others agree with me, saying that maintaining a home, living in it full-time, and having the emotional attachment gives me a stronger claim than just legal ownership. The situation came to a head last weekend. Emily and Daniel came over without warning, presumably to check on the house or discuss moving in, but I was home and refused to let them in beyond the front porch. Daniel tried to argue that as owners, they had the right to be inside, but I stood my ground. Emily got angry and accused me of being paranoid and cruel, saying I was treating them like intruders in a home they legally own. I told her that ownership doesn't automatically trump emotional connection, effort, or daily use. Now our extended family is divided. Some think I should let them move in to preserve our relationship, while others support me staying put. Emily has stopped speaking to me directly and communicates mostly through Daniel, who is increasingly hostile and keeps suggesting legal action, even though I don't think he would have a strong case given I've been living there and maintaining the property for years. I don't want our relationship to completely fall apart over a house, but I also feel like my feelings and my right to live in my own home are being ignored. I've tried compromise, but it seems like nothing will satisfy them short of me giving up the home entirely. I also feel like the way they are framing this makes me look like the villain when I'm just trying to protect a place that's important to me. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister and her husband move into our childhood home permanently? Or should I just suck it up for the sake of family peace? Character count, 6,589 if you want. I can also write a second version with even more drama and twists, like adding neighbors, friends, or even legal threats to make it feel like a top-voted Reddit story. This would hit closer to 7,000 plus characters while keeping it realistic. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé handle our family emergency, even though everyone says I'm overreacting? So, this is going to be a bit long, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. My 28F sister, Lily, 26F, has been dating her fiancé, Tom, 27M, for about 3 years now. Tom has always seemed fine at first glance. He's charming, funny, and well-liked by most people. But over time, I've noticed some red flags in how he interacts with Lily and, frankly, the rest of our family. I'm aware that might make me sound biased, but hear me out. Last week, our father, who has been struggling with some serious heart issues for the past year, had a health scare. He was admitted to the hospital unexpectedly after fainting at home. Mom called me immediately, panicked, and I rushed over from work. When I arrived, the scene was chaotic. Mom trying to talk to the doctors, my sister in tears, and Tom trying to help by directing everyone and giving unsolicited advice to the medical staff. Here's the thing. Tom has no medical training at all, but he was insisting on things like switching my dad's medications and questioning the nurses about why they weren't doing certain tests faster. It was making my mother cry more, and honestly, it was stressful for me too because I was trying to calm everyone down while simultaneously trying to help the doctors with accurate information about my father's medical history. I calmly told Tom that he needed to step back and let the professionals handle things. He argued with me, saying that I was being dramatic and that he was just trying to be helpful. I explained again that while I appreciated his concern, this wasn't the time for him to be the hero. Our father's life and the doctor's work were at stake. Tom finally left the room, but spent the rest of the evening hovering around my dad, giving instructions and making comments that frustrated everyone. The next day, the doctors determined that my dad would need surgery. Since it was an urgent procedure, only immediate family could be in the pre-op and recovery areas. Mom, my sister, and I were included, but Tom was not, which led to him throwing a minor tantrum about being left out, despite the situation being very serious. I had to physically ask him to wait in the waiting room because he tried to push his way into pre-op, arguing that he needed to be there for moral support. After the surgery, my dad was stable but required a lot of care. That's when things got more complicated. Mom and I were organizing a care schedule at home and dividing responsibilities. Tom immediately volunteered to come over daily to help. I politely declined, explaining that my dad was very sensitive and that it would be better for someone he was more comfortable with. Basically, family members he trusted. Tom didn't take this well. He called me controlling and said I was trying to exclude him from family matters because I didn't like him. A few days later, my sister sent me a long message saying that I was being unreasonable. She said that Tom wanted to be part of the family and that my father would benefit from extra help. She also mentioned that Mom felt I was overreacting and that Tom meant well. I tried to explain that my dad's health and emotional state were my priority, not Tom's feelings, but she accused me of turning a family crisis into a personal vendetta against Tom. The situation escalated when Tom showed up at our house unannounced while I was assisting my dad with some exercises. He tried to teach him a breathing technique for his heart condition, and when I intervened, he got defensive and snapped at me in front of my dad. That moment felt like a breaking point. I asked him to leave immediately, and when he refused, I had to call my mom to get him out. This caused a huge argument between my sister and me. Lily told me I was being cold and cruel, and that I was making Tom feel unwelcome during a time he should have been appreciated. Here's the part that really bothers me. The rest of the family, including my cousins and aunts, have started siding with Lily and Tom. They've been saying things like, he's just trying to help. Why are you being so hostile? And you're making this about you, not your dad. I've tried to explain calmly that it's about respecting boundaries and medical safety, not personal dislike, but nobody seems to get it. Now, I feel trapped because if I let Tom be more involved, I genuinely worry about my father's safety and emotional well-being. But if I continue to refuse, my relationship with my sister and possibly the rest of the family might be permanently strained. I feel like I'm being painted as the villain for prioritizing my dad's actual needs over someone else's desire to feel included. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé handle or intervene in our family emergency, even though everyone says I'm overreacting. AITA for refusing to let my sister's blended family experiment live in my house. So I, 32F, have a younger sister, Mandy, 29F, who has always been a little unconventional to put nicely. She's been through a string of relationships, some short-lived, some more serious, but most of them seem to follow a pattern of chaos, drama, and, frankly, questionable judgment. I've always tried to be supportive without being judgmental, because family, but over the last year, things have escalated in ways that I just can't handle anymore. Here's the context. I've been living in the same house I grew up in since my parents passed away about 5 years ago. It's a modest but comfortable 3-bedroom house with a small yard and just enough space for me to feel independent. I've always been kind of the responsible sibling. Steady job, no major drama, have my own life, but Mandy has always struggled a bit more with stability. A year ago, Mandy called me out of the blue, sounding panicked. She told me she had a new arrangement and needed a place to stay temporarily. That arrangement, as it turns out, involved her boyfriend, Josh, 34M, his 2 kids from a previous marriage, ages 7 and 9, and her own 5-year-old son. She said it would only be for a couple of weeks because their apartment fell through and they were sorting out a rental. Naturally, I hesitated but agreed, figuring a short-term stay wouldn't be the end of the world. At first, things seemed manageable. I rearranged my living room to accommodate a few extra beds and tried to keep my routines as normal as possible. But what was supposed to be a couple of weeks stretched into 3 months. Mandy didn't contribute to rent or utilities, claiming she was saving for a deposit, and it's just temporary. Josh seemed polite enough, but was a constant presence, and, to be honest, his parenting style was exhausting. His kids were sweet, but they were messy and loud, and they weren't used to any kind of rules or schedules. My house, which had always been quiet and predictable, was now loud, chaotic, and constantly messy. I tried to set boundaries, like asking them to clean up after themselves, respect quiet hours, and contribute financially. Mandy would nod and agree, then ignore everything. I also tried to talk to Josh, who insisted he couldn't force the kids to behave and that I should be more understanding. It's only a short time. The more I tried to enforce rules, the more tension grew. Mandy started making passive-aggressive comments about me being unwelcoming and not family-oriented. Then things escalated further. About 6 months in, Mandy told me she was planning to move her new boyfriend, Tom, 31M, into the house too. Apparently, Josh was out of the picture now, and Mandy thought my house could accommodate all 3 adults plus the 3 kids. She told me it would only be for a few weeks again, while Tom sorted out his living situation. I laughed nervously and said no, explaining that my house was not set up for 6 people and 3 kids. Mandy got furious, accusing me of being selfish and unsupportive. She said she thought family meant helping each other through tough times, and that I was choosing my comfort over her kids' stability. Things got worse. She refused to leave, claiming she had no other options. She started bringing in friends for support and letting them sleep in my living room when she didn't have space elsewhere. My small home became overcrowded, my routines impossible, and I felt like I had no control over my own life. I tried calling social services or a mediator, but Mandy threatened to ruin my life if I tried to evict her, saying I would never be able to say no to family again and that I was abusing my privilege. At this point, I realized something had to give. I told Mandy she needed to leave and gave her a firm 2-week notice. I explained calmly that I could no longer host her or anyone else indefinitely, and that my house was my sanctuary. Mandy lost it. She screamed at me, called me heartless, and accused me of abandoning her and my nephew. She also started posting on social media, painting me as a villain for refusing to let her keep her family together under my roof. Some family members have since sided with Mandy, saying I should have been more accommodating and that my house is technically a family home, and therefore I should prioritize her needs. Others are on my side, saying I was well within my rights to set boundaries and protect my space. Even friends are divided. Some say I was cruel for asking her to leave after being generous for months. Others say I should have refused her from the start. I feel torn. On one hand, I love my sister and my nephew, and I want to help when I can. On the other hand, I can't live like a hotel, constantly cleaning up, accommodating multiple adults and kids, and sacrificing my own mental health. I've been firm about not letting anyone else move in, and I'm prepared to follow through if necessary. But I keep feeling guilty because Mandy cries and says I'm choosing a house over family. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister and her blended group of partners and kids live in my house indefinitely? AITA for refusing to pay for my cousin's wedding after she accused me of being selfish and not family-oriented? I, 33F, have a cousin, Lila, 30F, who I've grown up very close with. She's outgoing, dramatic, and has always had a flair for the extravagant. I'm more reserved, financially cautious, and prefer to plan things carefully. Despite our different personalities, we've always considered each other family. So when she got engaged last year, I was genuinely excited for her. A few months ago, Lila invited me to help plan her wedding, which she had already envisioned as a grand, expensive affair. She told me she had found a designer dress, an upscale venue, expensive catering, and a live band. The total projected cost was over $40,000, and then she casually asked if I could contribute a significant portion of the expenses, around $2,000, because she said she couldn't afford it on her own. I was taken aback. While I make a decent income, I also have a mortgage, student loans, and other financial responsibilities that make that kind of contribution impossible. I told her I couldn't provide that kind of money, but I offered to help in other ways, assisting with planning, researching vendors, DIY decorations, and even helping with things like making invitations or coordinating with family members. I explained that support doesn't always have to be financial, and that there were many ways I could contribute meaningfully to her big day. Her reaction was immediate and harsh. Lila said I was being selfish, cold, and not family-oriented. She claimed that contributing financially was the only way to show I cared about her wedding, and if I truly valued our relationship, I would step up. I tried to explain again that I could support her in multiple ways that didn't involve giving an unaffordable amount of money, but she dismissed everything I offered. Over the next few weeks, she repeatedly brought up the topic, often sending long texts detailing her budget and how my contribution would make all the difference. She framed my refusal as a personal failing, saying that I was letting her down and that it was stressful and humiliating for her that I wasn't willing to help. She also posted vague messages on social media about friends and family who don't support you when it matters most, clearly hinting at me. Mutual friends and some relatives started weighing in. Some told me I should just give the money to avoid drama, while others agreed that $2,000 is a lot to expect from anyone and that my offers to help in other ways were meaningful. The more I tried to redirect the focus toward planning and contributions that fit my means, the more she accused me of being pathetic and said that my words weren't enough. About a month before the wedding, she held a planning meeting with friends and family. Lila openly said that I had refused to contribute financially, implying that I was unsupportive and selfish. I felt humiliated because I had offered plenty of other help, but she refused to acknowledge it. When I tried to shift the discussion to practical matters I could assist with, she dismissed them, insisting that only financial support would count. I then offered a final compromise. I could contribute a modest amount that wouldn't jeopardize my finances, take charge of planning logistics, and handle DIY projects for decorations and favors. Lila rejected this, calling it insufficient and saying that it showed I didn't care about her happiness or her wedding. She accused me of prioritizing my own comfort and finances over family. Since then, our relationship has become strained. She rarely talks to me except to complain about wedding stress, and some relatives have subtly pressured me to contribute, while others agree that I was right to set boundaries. I feel frustrated, guilty, and stressed. I genuinely want to celebrate her and contribute to her special day, but I also can't compromise my financial stability or allow myself to be guilted into giving more than I can afford. I also worry that giving in would set a precedent, where she might assume I'll always cover expensive aspects of her life events. I feel like I'm being punished for having reasonable boundaries, yet I also don't want to damage my relationship with her permanently. Reddit. AITA for refusing to pay for my cousin's lavish wedding after she accused me of being selfish and not family-oriented. I want to support her, but I also need to respect my own financial limits and personal boundaries. AITA for confronting my sister about her behavior at my wedding and causing a huge family fallout. So, this is going to be long, but I really need an outside perspective because my family is split and I feel like I might actually be the asshole here. I, 27F, recently got married to my husband, Matt, 28M. We had been together for 6 years and finally decided to have a small, intimate wedding because we both aren't huge fans of massive parties. We invited close family and friends only, about 60 people in total. My sister, Emily, 29F, is the oldest sibling and has always been a bit difficult. She tends to expect to be the center of attention at family events, and when she isn't, she makes it obvious she's upset. She's married with a toddler and generally has a lot going on in her life, but I always try to be understanding and give her the benefit of the doubt. A few weeks before the wedding, I sent out our guest list and details, including our seating chart. I put a lot of thought into who sat where, and I made sure she was seated at a table with people she gets along with. I also included her husband and son in that table. I thought that would be perfectly reasonable. About a week before the wedding, Emily calls me in tears, saying she feels like I'm trying to isolate her, and that she should be sitting at a table with my dad and stepmom instead. I tried to explain that I wanted everyone to enjoy themselves, and that she would have a great group of people at her table, but she wouldn't accept it. She said I was controlling and ruining family dynamics. I honestly thought she was overreacting, but I tried to calm her down and promised we could talk more at the rehearsal dinner. The day of the wedding came, and everything was going well until the reception started. Emily had a bit too much to drink, which is not unusual for her at family events. She immediately started complaining about her table placement to anyone who would listen. Then she began making loud comments like, "I can't believe you didn't think my child should be with family," and "I guess my feelings don't matter at all." I was trying to ignore it and enjoy my day, but she eventually confronted me in front of some other relatives, saying I was selfish for not putting her at the main table. I calmly told her again that I wanted everyone to have a good time, and that seating her at a table with people she likes would help with that. I didn't yell, but I was firm. That's when things escalated. She started yelling that I was a bad sister and that she couldn't believe I was prioritizing my friends over family. I finally lost my patience and told her that this was my wedding, my day, and I had the right to make decisions about how it was run. I reminded her that she had been invited, her son was included, and that she had no reason to make the day about her. I know it wasn't polite, but I was frustrated after months of her passive-aggressive comments and guilt trips. The whole confrontation drew attention, and suddenly half the reception was watching us argue. Emily stormed off, crying, and eventually left the venue entirely, saying she didn't want to be part of a family that doesn't respect her feelings. My parents and stepmom tried to calm her down, but she refused to come back. The rest of the reception was tense because many of our family members felt I overreacted. Some said I should have handled it differently. Others said Emily was being unreasonable. The fallout didn't stop there. For weeks, I've been getting texts from relatives asking me if I overstepped and if I regret what I said. My mom said she's disappointed I didn't handle the situation more delicately. My dad hasn't said much, but I can tell he's annoyed. Emily hasn't spoken to me directly since the wedding, and she's blocked me on social media. Meanwhile, friends who were at the wedding have told me that while the situation was uncomfortable, I had every right to stand my ground and not let my sister ruin my wedding day. Matt has been incredibly supportive, saying I was justified and that I shouldn't feel guilty for standing up for myself on a day that was supposed to celebrate our marriage. I appreciate that, but I can't help feeling like I ruined my relationship with my sister permanently. I really hoped she would calm down and eventually apologize, but nothing so far. I've tried reaching out a few times with texts apologizing if I embarrassed her, but I haven't mentioned anything about the seating conflict because I don't want to reignite the argument. She hasn't responded, and honestly, I don't know if she ever will. My parents keep telling me to give it time, but I can't help feeling like maybe I was too harsh and selfish. So, Reddit, AITA for standing my ground at my own wedding and confronting my sister, or was she unreasonable for turning my wedding into her personal drama? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she called me selfish and not family-oriented. I, 34F, have a sister, Monica, 31F, and while we were close growing up, our relationship has always been complicated. Monica is very outgoing, dramatic, and tends to expect people to bend to her plans, especially financially. I'm more reserved, careful with money, and prefer to plan things thoughtfully. Despite our differences, I've always tried to support her in meaningful ways. A few months ago, Monica got engaged. She immediately started planning a lavish wedding, including a designer dress, a high-end venue, expensive catering, live entertainment, and over-the-top decorations. She casually asked if I could contribute financially to her wedding, suggesting that close family members were expected to help fund it. The amount she requested was $2,500, which she framed as a necessary contribution to make her wedding perfect. I was stunned. While I have a decent salary, I also have student loans, a mortgage, and other ongoing expenses, so that kind of contribution was impossible for me. I told her I couldn't give that amount, but I offered other ways to help, assisting with planning, coordinating vendors, helping make DIY decorations, managing invitations, or even contributing a smaller, reasonable amount towards specific wedding expenses. I explained that support could come in many forms, not just financial. Monica's reaction was immediate and harsh. She accused me of being selfish, cold, and not family-oriented. She said that if I truly cared about her happiness, I would want her wedding to be perfect, regardless of cost. I tried to explain that I could still support her in other meaningful ways, but she refused to acknowledge any of my offers. Over the next few weeks, she repeatedly pressured me. She would send long texts detailing her budget, telling me how my contribution made all the difference, and framing my refusal as a personal failure. She also posted vague messages on social media about family members who don't step up when it matters, clearly hinting at me. Mutual friends and family members began weighing in. Some suggested I should contribute financially to avoid conflict, while others supported my decision, saying that $2,500 is a lot for anyone to provide and that I was offering meaningful help in other ways. The more I tried to redirect the focus toward planning, logistics, and contributions that fit my means, the more Monica dismissed them, calling me pathetic and not caring about family. About a month before the wedding, she held a planning meeting with friends and family. Monica openly stated that I had refused to contribute financially, implying that I was unsupportive and selfish. I felt humiliated because I had offered plenty of alternative ways to contribute, but she refused to acknowledge them. When I tried to shift the discussion toward practical matters I could assist with, she dismissed them, insisting that only financial support would count as real help. I then offered a final compromise. I could contribute a modest sum that would not jeopardize my financial stability, take charge of planning logistics, and manage DIY projects for decorations and party favors. Monica rejected this, saying it was insufficient and that it showed I didn't care about her happiness or her wedding. She accused me of prioritizing my own comfort and finances over family. Since then, our relationship has become strained. Monica barely speaks to me except to complain about wedding stress, and some relatives have subtly pressured me to contribute, while others agree that I was right to set boundaries. I feel frustrated, guilty, and stressed. I genuinely want to celebrate her and contribute to her special day, but I also cannot compromise my financial stability or allow myself to be guilted into giving more than I can afford. I also worry that giving in would set a precedent, where she might assume I'll always cover expensive aspects of her life events. I feel like I'm being punished for having reasonable boundaries, yet I also don't want to damage my relationship with her permanently. Reddit. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's lavish wedding after she accused me of being selfish and not family-oriented. I want to support her, but I also need to respect my own financial limits and personal boundaries. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of a dress code dispute. So, this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to keep it as organized as possible. I, 27F, have a younger sister, Emily, 24F, who is getting married next spring. Growing up, Emily and I were really close, but as we've gotten older, our relationship has had its ups and downs. We've always had different personalities. I'm more reserved and practical. She's very outgoing and perfectionistic, but we've managed to stay close enough that I thought this wouldn't be an issue. When Emily got engaged, she was over the moon and immediately started planning her wedding. I try to be supportive, even though I'm not a huge fan of extravagant events. Fast forward a few months, Emily and her fiancé sent out their wedding guidelines, which included a fairly strict dress code. The dress code was formal black tie, which isn't inherently a problem, but she had added a note that all guests must wear colors from her approved palette. This palette included pastels, jewel tones, and some very specific shades that weren't easy to find in stores. She also explicitly stated no black, no white, and no neutral tones like beige or gray, because it would ruin the aesthetic of my photos. I have to admit, my first thought was that this was a little over the top. I'm not someone who enjoys spending hundreds of dollars on a dress I'll probably only wear once, especially when I have a strict idea of what I like and what looks good on me. I looked through the approved colors and found a few options online, but everything that fit my style and size was either way overpriced or sold out. I messaged Emily to ask if I could maybe wear a dress in a neutral shade like navy or charcoal, since I didn't want to spend hundreds of dollars on something I'd never wear again. Her response was less than understanding. She basically said that no, she had put a lot of thought into this and she wanted her vision to be followed exactly, and if I couldn't comply, then I shouldn't attend. At that point, I was shocked. I love my sister, and I would never want to ruin her wedding, but I also have limits when it comes to spending and comfort. I decided to offer a compromise. I would rent a dress in one of her colors instead of buying one, and I even suggested trying a secondhand option. She immediately rejected that too, saying it had to be brand new and perfect. After a week of tense messages, I finally told her that I would not be attending her wedding because I couldn't justify spending that much money on a dress that made me uncomfortable, and I couldn't compromise my personal boundaries just to fit an aesthetic. I offered to celebrate with her before or after the wedding in a more casual setting, and I said I still loved her and wanted her day to be beautiful. This is where things blew up. My parents are angry with me, saying that I'm being selfish and petty, and that this is my sister's one big day, so I should just deal with it. Emily hasn't spoken to me in over a month. My other friends who know about the situation are split. Some say I should go no matter what, while others think Emily is being controlling. My partner, 29M, supports my decision, saying that a wedding is important, but no one should be forced to spend beyond their means or wear something that makes them feel bad just to make someone else happy. I get that weddings are a big deal, and I do feel guilty for not being there for my sister, but at the same time, I can't shake the feeling that her demands are unreasonable. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding over a dress code dispute. I feel like I'm being painted as the villain in my family for standing up for myself, but I honestly don't know if I'm overreacting. Some extra context that might help. I've attended other weddings before, and usually were something I already own with minor adjustments. Spending hundreds of dollars on a dress is genuinely a financial burden for me. Emily has always been detail-oriented, sometimes to the point of being controlling, but I've tolerated it for family harmony. I've offered to help in other ways, like helping her decorate, plan, or take care of things on the day, so it's not like I'm completely rejecting the wedding. I'm aware that my absence will probably cause tension with extended family, which adds to my guilt, but I don't want to compromise my own comfort and budget for an event, even one as important as a sibling's wedding. I honestly feel trapped between wanting to support my sister and protecting my own boundaries. It's been over a month since I last spoke to her, and the silence is painful. I thought family meant understanding each other, but now I'm not sure. So AITA here. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.